From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
Drones that spray, electric drives, one-axle electric tractors that work with the implement behind them to have articulated steering.
The future tech on the farm. We have an inside look at this year's Agritechnica as farmers battle bitter cold temperatures.
Mother Nature's on her own page this year.
And fight for fuel.
And we don't know when we'll get another shipment.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado and the all-new Silverado HD, the strongest, most advanced family of Silverados ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. As a record-breaking Arctic blast hits the heartland, farmers are desperate to dry out wet crops, and they're continuing to find propane in short supply. As Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan reports, there's no end in sight to the supply crunch.
As harvest crawls along at the slowest pace in 10 years, farmers are now faced with a new twist in 2019. No propane.
Yeah, yesterday it started. We got the call that we wouldn't be able to receive another shipment, and they didn't know when we would get another one.
Nick Ehlers farms in eastern Iowa.
We have about a day and a half supply left in our tanks, and then we don't know when we'll get another shipment.
Now looking at possibly no propane to dry his corn at all.
We know that there's trucks at the terminals, but we don't know how that's going to be allocated.
Possibly forced to wait until spring to find propane to dry his grain.
We'll go to plan B and maybe harvest wetter corn and freeze it and then dry it later. We're not sure.
The pinch to find propane has happened before.
We saw it in the winter of 2014 when a pipeline was taken offline through the northern plains and prices spiked to as high as $4 and in some places $5 per gallon.
But the issue this year isn't supply nationwide.
Across the U.S., we're sitting near 100 million barrels of propane in storage. The majority of that is down along the U.S. Gulf Coast. If we look at the Midwest in particular, we are a little bit below the seasonal average, but we still have fairly healthy stock levels.
While NOAA's winter forecast points to a mild winter, USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says a warm winter may not be in the cards this year, meaning the need for propane could get worse.
We are actually expecting some fairly significant incursions of cold air, particularly across the plains and the Midwest.
Rippey says shots of extremely cold air combined with more moisture is a combination already creating concern heading into spring.
We're going to have a lot of moisture that's going to be frozen in or locked into the soils.
For farmers like Ehlers, thoughts of spring are already sprouting fears.
There's plenty of propane, it's just going to be more expensive. That doesn't really help when you can't get it today and you're making a choice whether to dry your grain down or not.
As the scramble to move product north becomes even more dire, it's adding another headache to a harvest that's been anything but easy in 2019.
Thanks, Tyne. And that propane is desperately needed, not just to dry out crops, but to keep livestock warm. Bob Grove is a soybean and cattle farmer who also boards horses in Racine County, about 20 miles south of Milwaukee. He says the early cold and snow makes life harder all around for him and for the animals. He says they still have soybeans in the field with snow on them that they can't harvest. The snow clogs the machinery. It's pushing an already late harvest even later.
Well, this season has been a battle for farmers from start to finish. We've had tremendous amount of rain in the spring, prevented a lot of planting being done on time or at all. And this fall, tremendous amount of rain in September and October has really been a hindrance for harvest. You would think that at some point we'll have milder weather this winter, but who knows? Mother Nature's on her own page this year.
The latest crop progress report puts corn harvest in Wisconsin at just 30% complete. In North Dakota, it's only 15% done. Analysts say finishing harvest is going to be a grind.
The worst state, of course, is North Dakota with 85% of the crop still in the field. If they're only doing it a maximum of 10%, that's 8.5 weeks out before they're really significantly wrapping things up. And realistically, there's going to be weeks where there's a zero up there. So it's going to take a long time. We're looking at January at the very earliest to have this harvest done.
Biederman says test weights are also coming in lower, which could ultimately pull yield averages down and force grain feeders to use more. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen joins us now. Cindy, we'll soon start to see temperatures back on the upswing.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. It will warm up. It's going to take a little while, especially in the eastern part of the country. We're already starting to see some slightly warmer temperatures today, though, in the nation's midsection. The jet stream shows that we still have a trough that's going to keep the northeast cool, but it does warm up for the weekend in much of the eastern half of the country. However, notice that we have another trough coming, and that's going to bring some slightly cooler air to the early part of next week in the nation's midsection down towards the Great Lakes. It probably won't be as cold, though. That's the nice thing. And then we'll have yet another trough that comes in later on in the week, and that will be moving across the country as well. All right, let's take a look at some nice pictures, though. Harvest rolls on as the snow flies. Tom Jones snapping this photo high above a field in Winnemac, Indiana. Now, he calls this one snow plowing. A farmer doing some tillage in the snow, something that many farmers are probably having to do right now. Stick around. I'm going to have your national forecast coming up. Clinton?
Happening right now, the U.S. House has kicked off public impeachment hearings, but despite that, there was talk the new USMCA agreement could also come up for a vote as early as this week. Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer saying there is momentum to get the deal approved by Congress before the end of the year.
And I think you'll get it either the latter part of November or sometime in December before they recess. We really don't know their final recess date for this session of Congress, because they'll probably extend when they want to go out because they have an omnibus spending bill to do. So we do have time.
Wiesmeyer says he believes there's enough Democratic support in the House to pass it. Asian stocks sank on Wednesday after President Trump threatened more tariff hikes on Chinese imports if talks aimed at ending the trade war don't produce an interim agreement. And we're hearing from another aspect of the farm industry that's anxiously awaiting for that trade war to end. American wine producers, they say they're being squeezed out of the fast-growing Chinese market. Since the trade dispute began, China has raised tariffs on American wines 3 times in retaliation for U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods. Those tariffs have made U.S. wine much more expensive, leading to a steep drop in sales. Among the casualties is California's Winty Vineyards. It's a family-run wine business that was among the first U.S. winemakers to export to China 25 years ago.
Since June, when the third and final tariff was implemented, retaliatory tariff, we have not shipped a single bottle of wine to China. Our interest in China is still there. We know that the potential is there. 1.4 billion people. We've basically just pushed the pause button for the time being.
The U.S. Wine Institute says U.S. wine exports to China fell 25% in 2018 alone. California, home to Napa Valley and other famous wine growing regions, produces about 95% of U.S. wine exports. Despite what you may think, we apparently spend less on groceries than any other nation. That's according to one analyst with the American Farm Bureau Federation. Megan Nelson says Americans spend about 4.8% of their disposable income on food. She says in high-income countries, people spend up to 8% of their income on food. And she says in low-income countries, sometimes half of a household budget goes to feeding the family. Nelson went on to say that's why it's important to keep food prices predictable, not just for producers, but people in low-income countries. Cattle markets have been on a run lately. Could it last for the rest of the year? We take a closer look coming up. And later, we take you to Germany and this year's Agritechnica for an inside look at one combine that's turning a lot of heads. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell expects the economy will continue growing at a solid pace, but he says it still faces risks over trade tensions. Powell testified before Congress on Wednesday. Powell also saying the Fed is likely to keep its benchmark short-term interest rate unchanged in the coming months. That is, unless the economy slows enough to cause Fed policymakers to reassess their outlook. After a jump in wheat prices Tuesday, those markets saw a retreat at midweek. Let's get details from our friends on the floor of the CME in Chicago.
The wheat did retreat a lot, kind of took back all the gains that it had yesterday. So that just shows how much volatility is actually out there. It really stems from the cold weather, no snow cover, winter kill. All those kind of things really make the market bounce around, but the supplies remain the focus and will be a problem for the rest of the winter, and I think that's what's putting some pressure on the market. Still, the U.S.-China deal is going to be front and center, and overall, the U.S. dollar index is so strong right now, and it is absolutely putting a cap on any kind of significant rally from here on out. So those two things we're going to be watching closely going forward.
Jeff French with Top Third Ag, our guest today. Let's talk about this cattle market because it's been kind of dynamic here in the last few weeks.
Yeah, well, it's been unprecedented. We've had a 10-week rally straight up.
Right.
You know, it's one of those things where we overdid it to the downside with the Tyson plant closing, got it too cheap. But also you saw the funds really pile into it during this 10-week rally. They went from about 16,000 short to now they're net long about 60,000 contracts. But I would definitely look to protect this rally. We've kind of overdone it up here, and we got a cattle on feed report next week that might be a little bearish. So look at protecting that April in that 126 area, and also the June up at 118. Those are phenomenal prices.
A couple of things out of that. What was behind that rally? Was it just responding and coming back the other way? And why is it kept running?
Well, I think you've had a couple different things. Number one, the funds. I mean, they've piled into it. And when you have the stock market at all-time highs, one thing that the funds do is they buy cattle.
Okay.
But also we got it down too far, and we've also had some weather in here as well.
Yeah. So then if we're looking at cattle on feed coming up here in a week or so, what indicator there are you looking for?
It's the placements number.
Okay.
October placements for 2019 compared to 2018, the early estimates are potentially 18% higher than last year. So those cattle will be coming out in that April-June period. So that would probably limit the upside there. And we just took out contract highs here this week, up here at 127. So these are some good prices that definitely need to be protected.
Have you been surprised by this run?
Not surprised. I mean, we overdid it to the downside. I think it's gone, $3, $4, $5 more than I anticipated. But again, that's how commodity markets, especially livestock markets, do. They tend to overdo it to the downside and overdo it to the upside as well.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on it. Thank you so much for the insights, Jeff. We'll be back with more Ag Day coming up and a Check Your Weather in just a minute.
For a special report on the grain markets, call toll-free at 877-TT-HEDGE. That's 877-884-3343. Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Well, we have one main feature that we're going to watch as far as precipitation is concerned. That's in the nation's midsection. We're going to see some wet weather along the western Gulf Coast states. Still a little bit of snow in parts of the upper Great Lakes, but a lot of the country will be seeing fairly dry weather, especially out in the plains where we have high pressure taking control. Now, as we get through our day on Thursday, it's the southeast that has the best chance for any kind of wet weather, and that's going to be in the form of rain as we see this low pressure then moving up the southeastern coast. We'll still see a little bit of snow in the northeast, and out in the northwest we're going to have a little rain as another front starts coming in as well. But notice how dry we're expecting it to be in the plain states and in much of the upper Midwest, although the far northern areas you might be dealing with a little snow as that secondary front comes through, but most of the moisture's up in Canada closer to that low. Here's Friday, still that wet weather in the southeast, but that's moving offshore, and that low starts moving into the northeastern part of the country. Still fairly dry though in the nation's midsection, just that wet weather, the rain and upper elevation snow in the northwest. The last 24 hours we were looking at the precipitation, and it really wasn't much across most of the country, but the next 24 hours you see that low over near Texas, but then that second low that's moving up into the southeast, plus that front that's moving into the northwest. Now, as far as snowfall is concerned, it's mainly been up in the Great Lakes over the past 24 hours, but when we add on the next 24 hours, a lot of that stays just to the north. We'll see some of that, especially close to the border in our far northern stretches, but overall, it's going to be fairly quiet across much of the country. Temperature-wise, though, still pretty chilly. We've got 30s and 40s across a lot of the northern tier of states, but we are warming it up, and that is at least some good news. Still kind of chilly for this time of the year, even down south where we're dealing with 40s and 50s there too. You have to go to Phoenix or Miami to really see that warm weather. Into the overnight hours we go, and we're going to be seeing those temperatures still getting down, perhaps even into the teens as you get over towards the Great Lakes area. We've got 20s and 30s. Even down into parts of Texas, so some chilly overnight temperatures as well. But as I mentioned, it does get warmer as we get into the next couple of days as that trough exits into the east, and then we'll see a warmer weekend for most of the country. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Flagler, Colorado, abundant sunshine today with a high of 54 degrees. Memphis, Missouri, mostly sunny and cold with a high of 35. And Sampson, Alabama, showers likely later today with a high of 55.
Safety at America's packing houses is improving. We have the details coming up next. And later, take a trip to Germany and see what's new at the world's leading trade show for agricultural machinery.
Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
Some good news about safety in America's meat and poultry processing facilities. Drovers reports there was a record low number of injuries and illnesses on the job last year. Now, the numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics show meat injury accidents were reported to be 4.3 cases per 100 full-time workers. The most serious injuries also dropped to the lowest rates ever recorded. There are approximately 800,000 people who produce meat and poultry.
The 2018 data show a 20-year injury reduction of 80% from 20.1 to 4.3 incidents, illustrating a sustained industry trend of workplace safety improvement.
According to a statement from the Meat Institute, the organization declared worker safety a non-competitive issue, which encouraged companies to work together to find solutions to make worker safety a priority. Now, OSHA has not had a significant complaint against a meat packer for decades. Hall of Fame quarterback and Fox NFL Sunday analyst Terry Bradshaw is selling his 744-acre cattle and quarter horse ranch. The ranch located near Thackerville, Oklahoma. That's just 5 miles north of the Red River, which is north of Dallas. The rustic style 8,600 square foot home has 6 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, and 4 oversized brickstone fireplaces. The current listing doesn't have a price, but Bradshaw previously listed the property in 2016 for over $10 million. He recently told the Dallas Business Journal he just doesn't have enough time to enjoy the ranch anymore. One of the biggest ag equipment shows in the world is underway in Germany. We'll take a tour and get a peek at some exciting new technology currently on display in the country. Next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
The Association of Equipment Manufacturers says the sale of all tractors in the U.S. is up 4% so far this year compared to January through October of last year. Combine sales are also up 2.5%, and excitement may help keep that trend going, according to Sean Haney of Real Agriculture of Canada. He joins us from this year's Agritechnica show with the details.
Sean Haney reporting from Agritechnica in Hanover, Germany, and behind us is probably the release that's gotten the most attention here at the show. It is the new X-Series Combine from John Deere. It is John Deere's first entrant into the twin rotor market, which has definitely gained a lot of hype from a lot of the John Deere fans and a lot of criticism from some of the people that are fans of other twin rotor machines that are on the market. What you can't dispute is the fact that it has gained so much attention here. And they've been very, very quiet about some of the specifications of this new large X9 machine that is behind us. They've talked about how in 2020 they are going to have demo units out in the field, and they will also have the specs released once they get to some of the North American shows as we cross into the new year. The other thing that John Deere's really focused here at the show, it is probably one of the largest booths on the floor. There's over 27 halls at this show. Over 450,000 visitors attend here. They've also showcased some concepts of the future, things that may not even actually hit the market. Drones that spray, electric drives, one-axle electric tractors that work with the implement behind them to have articulated steering, a whole bunch of stuff like that. And one of the things out there, when you think about all this demand for data and trying to make sure that people are able to have these high-tech cabs function in the future, is where's the broadband? Where's the throughput? We need to have 5G in order for this to work. Reporting for AgDay, this is Sean Haney from Agritechnica in Hanover, Germany.
Love it. Thanks, Sean. Sean Haney with Real Agriculture. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.